Así testan. Oh, vivo. Ya. Nos dio un par de eso, creo que pensé. Ja. Die data per anno sia. Nooit hoor. Ja. Un c'è problema anche nel passato da Daco. Tipo, huisdokter mandava fazer test. Não tem suficiente uroloog na Aruba. Dus zei dat un c'è problema. Ja. Ja. Dus mas gente bij test. Mas ik gehaald dat bij zoveel die gente dan kan bij uroloog. Maar ja.
Maar gaan jullie wel meer urologen zoeken dan? Dat heb je wel nodig. Hetzelfde geldt voor die darm, de internisten en dat soort dingen. Dus, ja. Ik ga nog bellen. Utrecht met de winkeltoeristen en de neurologen, maar ik begreep niet hoe het kan zijn dat je maanden moet wachten op een afspraak. Het kan gewoon niet.
Ik was voorzitter geweest van
Genoeg specialisten zijn.
Ik heb een samen
Ja, maar ze moeten ook leren plannen, deze mensen, organiseren.
En mijn advies was, alleen doen afwijst. Klaar, de hersenchirurg.
Zie maar, dan gaan ze weer weg en daar trokken je wachtlijsten mensen.
Nee, daarom. Dan ben ik wegwerkt. Wachtlijst van 4 maanden. Periode, want ik was voor planning. Dan heb je dus 4 maanden om te plannen. Hoe moet men je beginnen? En als het zo doorgaat, dan moeten de mensen dan in dienst.
Ja.
Dus wat dan had ik best wel ziekenhuis moesten laten zien. Het zat ook best wel 10 weken meer. Dat nemen wij Ramadan. Hey, dat nemen we even samen met de afgelopen jaren. Dus ik weet.
Nee, maar dan gaat het helemaal niet om.
Zie je normaal roepen? Dan denk ik, oh, nee, zometeen een bietenspecialist, ik ga gewoon niet meer mee. Sorry, hoor.
Dat we zijn met de bebê op zijn. Mi mamá no tempo na passa na Boston, mi mamá tá em 40 já. Então nós é dado, nós tá passando tempo, nós e
Ja, met een jonge ingang.
Optimiza el almacenamiento. Elimina fotos y videos duplicados. Borra promociones y correos no deseados. Descarga CleanUp gratis.
Ah, dat heb je. Nou, het begint al goed op arbeid.
Hallo, goedemorgen collega's. Wij gaan zo beginnen. Ik wil jullie graag vragen om plaats te nemen, zodat we dan meteen kunnen beginnen. Beste collega's, wij gaan zo beginnen. Ik vraag even uw aandacht. Ik wens u een hele fijne morgen. Un bon dia. Bendición pedia. Wij gaan zo beginnen. We hebben vandaag namelijk op het programma presentatie van de Air Service Development. Maar in het presidium hebben we wel bepaald voor een andere titel. En dat is het volgende. De toekomst van de luchtvaart. Connectiviteit binnen het Koninkrijk. En dat is ook gehonoreerd door de AAA. Vanmorgen hebben we midden ons de executives van Aruba Airport Authority. We hebben de heer Jurgen Benschop. Hij is de Chief Operating Officer. Wij hebben mevrouw Aisha Anthony, Chief Financial Officer. En we hebben ook mevrouw Barbara Brown. En zij is de Chief Revenue Development and Communication Officer. Ja, dus we starten meteen. We heten jullie allemaal welkom. En we geven het woord aan AAA. Dank je wel.
Thank you. We will do the presentation in English. The honorable chairs of the committees of Kingdom Affairs of the first and second chambers of the Parliament of the Netherlands, honorable presidents of the parliaments of Aruba, Curaçao, and Sint Maarten, honorable members of the parliaments of Aruba, Curaçao, Sint Maarten, and the Netherlands, and distinguished guests. Good morning, and welcome to Aruba Airport Authority's presentation. My name is Aisha Anthony, Chief Financial Officer of AAA, and it is a pleasure to welcome you today. We are delighted and truly honored to have been given the opportunity to participate in the IPCO program by hosting this presentation and site visit. Thank you for your interest in our airport, Aeropuerto Internacional Reina Beatrix, and your continued engagement across the kingdom. Today, we will showcase AAA and the work we are doing under Gateway 2030, a modernization program that supports Aruba's tourism and economy by expanding capacity, and just as importantly, improving the passenger experience, passenger flow, and overall operational efficiency. Gateway 2030 represents a major step forward for Aruba's connectivity and resilience, and we are pleased to share our progress with you. Following the presentation, we have arranged a site visit program including transportation to key areas of the project, construction site, baggage handling system, and the new check-in hall, so you can see firsthand how the modernization is taking shape. As already said, joining me today are Jurgen Benschop, Chief Operating Officer, and Barbara Brown, Chief Revenue Development and Communications Officer. Barbara will walk you through our plans, our progress, and the impact we expect Gateway 2030 to deliver for Aruba. She will also share airport perspective insights and statistics on the interconnectivity between the Dutch Caribbean islands. That interconnectivity discussion serves as a precursor to Monday's tripartite sessions, where AAA also has been invited to discuss airfares between the Dutch Caribbean islands and whether pricing is impacting travel volumes. More details will be shared then, including findings from research on airfares, discussions with regional airlines, and an update on the work of Dutch Caribbean Corporation of Airports over the past years. After today's presentation, we will be happy to answer any questions you have. And then at 9:45, we would like to proceed to the bus area outside to depart at 10 a.m. for the construction site visit. There you will be met by our construction resident engineer, Mr. Gerard Turk, who will provide an overview of the works from a safe distance. And after that, we will be led by Jurgen Benschop to the baggage handling and new check-in hall. But now, without further ado, I will turn the floor over to Barbara and at a certain point, Jurgen as well for this morning's presentation. Thank you once again for your attention.
Good morning, everybody, with protocol already having established. Thank you for allowing us to give you a brief presentation, or a bit long, presentation on the Gateway 2030 project. And it's great that you will all see the project in its entirety when we go on the site visit later. As Aisha already mentioned, I will run you through the Gateway 2030 program scope. And that will include all the phases that we have, phase 1A, phase 1B, and 2. And at the end, I will also give you some stats on the travel between the Dutch Kingdom Islands as was requested, which will give you some more background information for your discussions on Monday. The Gateway 2030 program scope. Ik ga dit even loshalen. As you know, we had an expansion in the year 2000 that was called Beatrix 2000. The white area is basically the Beatrix 2000 project back then. What you see in blue, that's the whole gateway scope of the 2030 project, Gateway 2030 project. Back in 2000, we planned to operate an airport that could handle 2.6 million passengers. And then at some point in time, we continued to grow and grow and grow. And at this time, we are handling 3.4 million passengers. So as you can imagine, our current capacity, our current infrastructure can simply not handle the amount of passengers the way we would like to be able to serve our passengers and our airlines. Hence, it was decided back in 2017 to start the Gateway 2030 project. The 2030 project was divided into phases after COVID happened. Instead of building it in one entire go, we decided to build it in a few phases. Phase 1A, the blue phase, is already done, and this is the first half of the new check-in hall for the US-bound passengers. As you know, we have two check-in areas at the airport. We have two separate flows. We have a flow for US-bound passengers and a flow for non-US-bound passengers that meet up in the middle, then separate again to have a different kind of process for the US-bound passengers because they pre-clear here in Aruba. So there's US Customs and Border Protection Services here in Aruba. Hence, we first made phase 1A, which includes a baggage handling system. This is a state-of-the-art modern baggage handling system that handles the operation of the US-bound flights at the moment, but in the future will also handle the non-US-bound flights. Jurgen will give a brief description of the BHS in a bit. Phase 1B, which is currently under construction, will have 3 new hold rooms, which will include also a remote boarding area, as we call it, basically for busing passengers to their aircraft. We will have 3 bus departure gates on the ground floor, and then on the second floor you will have 2 new hold rooms, which will include a MAR stand, which is basically a multiple aircraft stand, which is the first one you see on the left, and then the other stand, which is a normal aircraft stand that can handle certain types of aircraft. The expansion of Gate 8, which is currently the last gate you see in the orange next to the white area, we will also be expanding that gate area. It's a bit small at the moment for the type of aircraft we want to operate there, or we are currently handling there. And there will be a connector to the new phase 1B area. And then phase 2, we will have currently are working hard to get everything arranged for the design and the actual construction of phase 2, which will then happen right after phase 1B. In phase 2, we will have complete the second half of the new check-in hall. And once that is completed, they will both form, as I just mentioned, the one check-in hall for US and non-US departures. Because at the moment, non-US departures happens here and US departures happen there. When this is all done, phase 2, all departure check-in will happen on that one side of the building. We will also have a new document control check before you enter into restricted areas. We will have a passport control area that is completely new, a completely new security area, and a new facility for the US Customs and Border Protection Services. And on the second floor, before passengers then go to their gates, they will enter into a new, completely new commercial space for performing their, or having amenities available to the passengers before they depart. Phase 1A, in brief, as I already mentioned, that is currently already operational. We started operations last year in July, and we have the new baggage handling system also behind that area, which you will see later for yourselves also. This is a view of what the rendering was back when we were designing the building, and this is basically what it looks now. So we are very satisfied with how it turned out, and it looks exactly what we had in mind back then. This is the interior that was the design first, and this is what it actually looks like at the moment. You will see that later also when we have the site visit. And it includes all the technologies like the self-backdrop areas also that we recently installed. This is the baggage handling system, and I'll take it, give Jurgen the word.
Goedemorgen, good morning. As Barbara already explained, we do have in Aruba the US pre-clearance. That's a treaty between the Dutch Kingdom and Washington, the US government. Since the 70s, the pre-clearance treaty and the services in Aruba has been expanded, has been started since the early 70s, 80s. As US Customs, then came USDA, which is the Department of Agriculture, then came US Immigration. So the three of them together were separate entities. Back after the September 11 incidents, they were combined into one department, which was called DHS, Department of Homeland Security. And based on that, there is a treaty also between Dutch Kingdom and US government that all passengers and all flights departing Aruba has to be 100% pre-cleared in Aruba. And the good thing is that Aruba has about 70% of our passengers are US citizens or US passengers going to the US. So it makes a lot of sense to have this kind of service in Aruba as Aruba is relying on the tourism industry, right? So for that reason, we have to comply with all the requirements of both US CBP and also TSA, which is the screening authority from the US, because the flights departing Aruba as departing as a domestic flight from Aruba into the US. So we need to comply with the same standards and service levels that the US government is providing in the US. Even though they're not an authority in Aruba, they're being mandated to us through the Department of Civil Aviation. So they send their mandates, we do passenger processing and screening based on US level for 100% of the passengers departing Aruba, US and non-US, one standard. Based on that, we had to upgrade our entire baggage handling system because all bags being screened in Aruba has also to comply with the US standards, which means that both the passenger and their bags can go tail to tail when arriving in the US. So the passengers transfer from gate 1 to gate 2. At any US airport, the bags can go directly from aircraft 1 to aircraft 2 without being screened in the US. That's the standard of service that we are providing here in Aruba. So based on that, we had to upgrade our entire BHS system to comply with those high level of standards. So we're very proud to say that this is one of the most modern systems in the whole region, not only the Caribbean, Latin America and the whole Americas and that whole region. So Aruba is really, really proud that we can showcase what we have today. And you know, just looking at the pictures, it doesn't make that much impact, but when you actually see it later, you're gonna see that's gonna be like a small Disney World when you walk in. So that impact it gives you, but we can process many more bags at a higher service level. All right, prior to that, when we started the gateway phases, we had about 8 to 9 different checkpoints for the passenger flow to get from check-in all the way to the gate. So this imposed a lot of stop points and pressure on the passengers to be able to go through the airport. With the check-in, with the introduction of phase 1A, we were able to eliminate a couple of them, and we will be eliminating more of these processing points by introducing new technology also. So we had check-in, passport control, immigration, security check, bag claim again, because all passengers had to claim their bag to present it to the US authorities, 100%. With this new system, all the bags are being processed automatically in the bag, and US CBP only recall the ones they want to see, because they get an image of the bag, they get an image of the screening of the bag, so they can already see what's inside the bags before the passenger actually get to them. So then they go to US pre-clearance, they got pre-cleared into the US. They had to drop their bags again afterwards, do another security check. Why? Because the passenger and the bags come in contact with each other again. Technically, the standard for a check bag is different than the standard for a carry-on bag. So if the passenger and the bag comes back together and they can open their check bag, take a knife out and put it in their carry-on, they need to be rescreened again. By eliminating that, you also eliminate those additional steps. All right, so with opening of phase 1A, we were able to remove already 3 of the 8 checkpoints that we had for the passenger, which means that the passenger can get much faster from check-in to the gate, which is a better service to the passenger, but also better for us as an airport because they have more leisure time at the gates to do shopping, to relax, to get that anxiety out before boarding. All right, so we're down to 5, and hopefully in the future, we're planning to automate some of these. Passport control and immigration, for example, can be completely automated by using e-gates or biometric, so that's coming in the future. All right, so some highlights of the BHS system. As mentioned already by Barbara, right now we're only doing US bags, but when phase 2 is ready, we will be doing 100% of the bags. We have now, for example, a holding capacity of 1,266 bags, which means that the bags get processed, it goes into an automatic storage facility. Why? Because the bag needs to wait for CBP to clear the passenger and their bag. If CBP wants to recall the bag, the robots automatically find the bag, brings it down to CBP automatically so they can open it. After CBP clears the back, then it goes to the ground handler to the airplane, fully automated. We have 3 EDS, which is like a small bus that screens the bags. You're gonna see it in a little bit. We have space for a 4th one, so this year we're gonna be adding a 4th one. 17 makeup laterals, which is the drop piers. 3 radiation portals. This is very important because all bags to the US have also to be radiation screened. This is new. We didn't have this in Aruba or anywhere else in the region. This was required for the bags to transfer tail to tail, one aircraft to the other, because then the US authorities are secured that all bags are screened both for explosive but also for radiation. You can have an explosive in your bag, but you can also have radioactive material, which is not being detected. So this does it automatically. If it detects radioactive in one of the bags, there is an automatic shift to a protective bunker. There is an entire sealed bunker in the BHS. The bags goes automatically into it. It gets locked off until the local authorities and CBP come and inspect it and clear it for radioactive material. Check back resolution and on-screen resolution, which is the security part of the business. So it's a 3-level screening. The machine does the first level of screening based on TSA algorithms. That's the algorithms get put into the system. The machine says clear or no clear. The second level is the OSR, which is an officer sitting behind the computer. They get the image, they get a few seconds to decide clear or no clear. The third level is Zebra, which is the check back resolution, which is somebody physically opens the bag and looks at it to make sure it's clear. Those are the 3 levels we have. And automatic tag reader, of course, we need to comply with IATA regulations. So the IATA regulation requires that all bags are always constantly monitored throughout the whole process, from check-in until delivery. So we know at all points where the bag is. I think we have a short video just to give you some highlights of the BHS.
Thank you, Jurgen. Yes, and when you go to the site visit in a bit, you will all see this also for yourselves, and you will get some more explanations of all the technicalities of the system. I will just flip through it because you're going to see it in a bit anyways. Phase 1B, so that was Phase 1A, and now we're diligently working on getting Phase 1B ready also. As explained already, the 3 new hold rooms, contact stands, remote bus gates, and the expanded Gate 8 and the connecting bridge is what Phase 1B will entail. These are some renderings of what it will look like when we're done. So in a bit you will also see the construction that is ongoing at the moment for this phase. This is what it will look like on the inside, and seeing what Phase 1A did, we're confident that Phase 1B will look exactly like this when we're done. Maybe some different colors, because that changed a bit, but the look and feel will essentially be this. This is some pictures of the construction site some weeks ago. And when you go there in a bit, you will see that we actually have made a lot of progress on the expansion in Phase 1B. This is the connector that will connect the old building with the new building. Basically, the planning is to be complete with construction in April of 2027, but we are pushing the contractor and everybody involved and any stakeholder involved to get this done by the end of this year. So, and then we will have it operationally ready before what is now planned. I'm not sure when that will be, but in any case, if we finish 4 months earlier, then the operation will of course also be 4 months earlier. And then we have Phase 2. This is the more complicated phase. Why is it complicated? Because we're actually building in an operational area at that time. As I mentioned already, we will be building the next part of the new check-in hall, and we will then have all of those extra services for passport control, document control, security lanes, USCBP, all of that on the ground floor. And then on the second floor, we will have the commercial area that passengers can go through before they go to the gate. This is what the layout is of the area. So basically, this is what we already built, this part. This is already here, you will see that. And this is what will be built additionally. The check-in area, the passenger processing point into secured areas, the security or the immigration point, so local immigration out, security lanes that will be installed there. We have at the moment 6 lanes. This is built to handle 8 security lanes, so we can process much more passengers. And then the US-bound passenger goes to the right into the CBP area, and the non-US bound passenger goes the other way into the current main concession area as we know it, which will then also be remodeled to service those passengers. So all of this is part of phase 2 and is in a building that is currently being operated. And then on the second floor, we will then have US-bound passengers coming up an escalator, elevator, or stairs into a new commercial area that will be geared to their experience and for them to have some dwell time and make good use of that area, and after that go to their gate areas. This is a bit of the look and feel of what it will look like. It is the same look and feel that we have created in phase 1A, which you will see in a bit when we go to the site visit. These are some renderings of what it will look like. It's not completed yet, but just to give you some look and feel of what the commercial area would look like upstairs when they're done. In order to do phase 2, we have a lot of enabling works to do for us to be able to actually demolish this area. That means that the CBP will have to be housed somewhere. We're already arranging that all of this is empty. This is the former baggage pickup area, so that's already basically empty, not being used. But we will have to move CBP into an area in order for us to build that part. It has been determined now then that we will move CBP temporarily into the current main concession area that we have at the airport. For those not familiar, main concession area is basically the area that passengers go through now after going through security. All passengers go through that area, US and non-US. But in the interim, we will have to build a temporary facility for CBP to operate in that area in order to clear US-bound passengers and US-bound passengers to be brought up to the next floor at the airport. So this is the temporary CBP facility. We will also be building a temporary vertical transportation area, which will include elevators, escalators, and stairs in order for the passengers to come up onto the areas where you have all your gates. This is where you will have the vertical transportation unit, and these are the current existing gates, and this will connect on to the phase 1B that will be ready. We will also be building additional temporary retail and F&B areas in between certain gates in order to provide for some more square footage of retail and F&B space that we would be losing because of having CBP in that temporary main concession area at the moment. So all of that is part of the enabling works that we have to get started this year in June in order to create that new flow for the passengers around the phase 2 area that we will have to build out. This is simply a view of what we will be building in between gate 6 and 7 for the extra square meters of retail and F&B space for a temporary situation. Now all of that is starting already. We've been working on the enabling works for quite some time now. And we are going to start this year in June with building that temporary CBP area. We will also start later then with the expansion in between gate 6 and 7. And then the phase 2 design and process update of the design is also currently being finished. And then we will contract and execute phase 2 in the coming years, and the intention is to have it done by 2030. We are also accelerating this as much as we can, and hopefully we will have it finished a little bit earlier than the second half of 2030. And as you know, the project is called Gateway 2030. We didn't want to finish in 2030. We wanted it to take us into 2030, but we will finish in 2030. Even kijken, yeah. So that was all Gateway. And we were asked to give you some insight on the Dutch Caribbean passenger and flight data for your discussions this coming Monday. Monday you will be having this presentation in much more detail given by Johnny Anderson, our CEO, who, by the way, excuses himself, who could not be present today. He had a family emergency to attend to at home in Europe, so, but he thanked you all for your presence here today and for your attention to the presentation. And Johnny and Joanne Arends, who is our Aviation Business Development Executive, will give you an in-depth presentation on all the details that you are looking for in relation to making the inter-island connectivity more affordable as requested. This just gives you some insight into, first of all, what we do as an airport. The end of last year, we finished with 5.4% more passengers than the year before, so we continue to grow. Our seat capacity also grew. Load factors are at a healthy 86.7%, and our amount of flight departures also grew with 3.7%. As you can see, Jurgen already mentioned it, the US is about 70% of our traffic, Canada 4%, the European traffic is 4%, and Latin American is at 18%. The Dutch Caribbean represents 5% of our traffic at the moment. That is traffic between Aruba, flights going from Aruba to Curaçao, Aruba to Bonaire, and Aruba to St. Martin through Curaçao at the moment. So that's what you should be understanding when it says Dutch Caribbean traffic. This is the passenger data from 2019 through 2025 that we had between the Dutch Caribbean. RGPs for us are revenue generating passengers. These are the passengers that depart our airport and are called revenue generating because those are the ones that, of course, pay the applicable airport charges and aircraft charges by the airlines. So when you look at these lines, the one dot here, that's the number for January 2026. The orange line is what we did in 2025 in amount of passengers. The dip here is, of course, the 2020 number. But as you can see, we are doing more than what we did in 2019 before COVID happened. We think that we will be performing in the same lines in 2026 as 2025. Why? Because we don't have other operators. We have 3 carriers operating. You have Easy Air, Winair, and Divi. They have no plans to expand their fleet or to expand frequencies, as far as we know up to now. There was one who said that maybe they are going to expand, but we're not there yet. And there's a new entrant also who said they would want to start operations between the islands, but they are also not ready with all the permits they would need to do so. But in any case, we think that in 2026 we will do approximately the same as 2025, unless the load factor increases even more. Load factors on these flights are very healthy. They used to be around 70, 75%. At the moment, they're 80, 85% load factors, sometimes even simply full. When there's cultural festivities going on the islands, you hardly get any flights in between those islands. So more capacity would, of course, be very good for this particular market. These are the flights, it's the same as the one before. 2026 is the one dot for January, and 2025 is the orange line. We are doing less, as you can see, than in 2019, because we used to have 5 carriers back then. We used to have more airlines operating in between the islands. You had Aruba Airlines doing flights. There was Dutch Caribbean at a certain point. But in any case, at this time, we think in 2025, as I just mentioned, that there will not be much changes. But again, tomorrow you will get, or Monday, you will get much more details on the stats for this. So when you look at this, the total RGPs and flights, it has increased ever since after COVID. It has a healthy amount of passengers and a healthy amount of flights that are being operated, and the load factors are also healthy at the moment. As you know, we have a Dutch Caribbean Cooperation of Airports Association that was started in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And this is an association that actually has as a goal to make all inter-island travel more affordable, more efficient, and more sustainable. This was started, and these are the airports in the region that are part of this effort. And it's currently op een laag pitje, zoals they say in Dutch. And it really needs to be reignited again to continue to pursue especially the affordability and the efficiency of the travel between the islands. This is just an overview of what the main events were from the Dutch Cooperation of Caribbean Airports in the past. We've had 3 conferences held. The first one in Aruba, the second one in Curaçao, and the third one was in Sint Maarten. And some of the achievements that were part of what the DCCA actually tried to accomplish within the goal that they have. So there was an MOU signed with the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management of Netherlands. That was done during the first conference. There was a demonstration of the E-flight, as we all know it. The what was it called again? I can't remember the name of the flight. Anyway, we had an electric plane that did a lot of demonstration flights here in Aruba under that conference week. We also have an extensive joint strategic plan that was drawn up. And in that joint strategic plan, it's elaborated further on what we actually want to do and how we want to achieve that affordable, efficient, and sustainable travel between the islands. There's a task force that was activated, an action force project team, to perform the activities that stem from that joint strategic plan. And there's also a survey and a research that was done on the inter-island traffic connectivity, including price elasticity in that report. And that is part of what Monday will be presented to you in much more detail on what that survey and that research actually showed. And that was presented in the second symposium in Curaçao, if I'm not mistaken. Then in 2025, we managed to reduce a line, a component of the airport charges that we have as airports in the region. It was called harmonization tariff, basically. So we lowered one component of the fees on Aruba, Curaçao, and Sint Maarten, I believe. And Bonaire already was at that rate. So that was also one of the achievements under the DCCA. And there's still the differentiatie vliegbelasting. That was something that was really pushed from the DCCA platform, and luckily that actually transpired. the long-haul aviation tax is not applicable to flights to the Kingdom Islands here in the Caribbean. And we are mentioned in several reports relating to sustainable aviation as yet as the DCCA and what actually is the intention of having that DCCA cooperation. But again, Monday you will hear much more about the actual ask you had on the connectivity between the islands with much more data behind it. So that's basically it. I think we're at the end. So if there are any questions for either me, Aisha or Jurgen.
Oké, dankjewel voor de presentatie, Barbara, Jurgen en Aisha. Ik kijk even rond voor vragen. Yes, mevrouw Vogel.
Well, first of all, thank you for your presentation. Can you hear me or not? No. Nee? Oh, dichterbij. Ja. First of all, my compliment to all of you and to Aruba, to the airport, because I see a project which is heading to a state-of-the-art airport, and I'm impressed by the speed which you are building. Ah, well, I shared him again. Sorry. Well, I'm happy to share again the compliments I just expressed to the airport and to Aruba as a country, because of what I see is a project which is heading towards a state-of-the-art airport, and I'm impressed by the speed in which you are building it. And I think a lot of airports could learn from that. And my question is related to that. I heard about the Aruba Happy One Pass and the use of the digital ID for faster and more secure process. And I was wondering whether Aruba is participating in the pilot that is, I believe it's starting later this year, together with Curaçao and the Netherlands. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for the question. There's different things going on. One of them is the digital travel credential, the DTC. Aruba has to adjust some laws locally, so that's something that I think the Parliament has to work on. Very important to make sure that the laws do comply with the international standards and requirements for data protection and the security of the data being used. The A-Hub is a new concept. Why? Because it's an add-in via an app. It's, you can add in or add out. You choose as the owner of the data, and you maintain responsibility of the owner of the data. So that's a new concept that we're working on. The A-Hub project right now, it's in its final stages, which is the Aruba Happy One Pass, which is the new version of the previous Aruba Happy Flow that started in the early years. That was the preliminary project that would connect passengers through the islands, through Aruba, with the local authorities, with the departure control system of the airline, all of them connected into one system. So AHOP is coming. Another project they're working on is the APP, which is the passenger protection data. There is also an agreement last year, Q4, the new pre-clearance agreement was renovated between the Dutch Kingdom and Washington for the coming years. Part of that agreement is data sharing between local immigration and CBP. So by that, we can also eliminate the controls at outbound at local immigration for all US traveling citizens. They just walk by immigration because immigration, US CBP data in the US would be considered out of Aruba. So then 70% of the passengers no longer need to clear immigration locally out. Then immigration can focus only on 30% of the outbound passengers. So there is a lot of new technology being implemented, but for that, Aruba needs to have its laws in place to waarborg the validity of the data. All right? Yeah, thank you for the comments. Yeah. I do have to apologize for the CEO. We should have started the. Oh, you mentioned already. All right, sorry.
Oké, thank you, Rian Vogels. Ik zie nog een vraag. Mr. Lewis?
Good morning, everyone. Just a question. The question with regards to the fairs. Okay, I will rephrase the question. The question is regarding to the airfares between the Dutch Antillean Islands. It's a discussion that's part of the SSS Islands, we're having our own discussions. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, last year or the year before, Chair Lady, our Chair Lady of Parliament. What are the margin that you're trying for former Dutch Antillean Islands? My second question with regards to the DCCA, discussions with regarding also the former Dutch Islands for the inhabitants of those islands who can travel with their local identification instead of using their passports. Can you please give me answers to that?
I can give you a general answer because Monday you will probably get much more detailed information, and then Joanne can explain that even more. But to get first to your second question, yes, that is part of the Joint Strategic Plan efforts. One of the activities or the milestones we would like to reach is that we could all travel with an ID and not necessarily with a passport in between the islands. So that is something that is part of the goal of collaborating with all the stakeholders, not only the airports, but we need to collaborate with the immigration stakeholders also involved on each island, and all kinds of other things that may have to change. Maybe some laws will have to change here and there in order for us to be able to actually travel with the ID. But yes, that is part of what the DCCA wanted to make sure that actually happens to make that travel more efficient. That's part. Now, the affordability, the part that you asked about, the rates and charges, I can't give you an exact margin. What I can give you some more insight in, or some general information, the ticket price of these airlines is not only determined by our fees as an airport or our passenger charges that all airports in the region have. It's also a big component of their pricing is, of course, their operational expenses they have, which then includes the aircraft charges that we charge as airports, which are much hoe zeg je dat? Zijn prohibitief, they're not as high. But there are other charges, for example, to give you a very concrete example, when you fly into Bonaire, you have to you have to pay aanvliegroute, the ATC charges that you pay for each and every flight you do are a couple of $100 per flight. So imagine if you operate as DV 5 flights a day or even more in between Aruba and Bonaire, or Curaçao and Bonaire. They don't fly Aruba, Bonaire, but Curaçao and Bonaire. For each flight, they have to pay those fees too. Then you have the ground handling you have to pay, your fueling, the maintenance of the aircraft. So all of those components are part of what determines the fare that one charges, of course. And as we all know, these type of aircraft that are used by Easy, by DV, and by Winair require a lot of maintenance and require a lot of preventive maintenance and normal maintenance that these aircraft have to go through. So it's quite, the business model is that it's quite costly to operate these aircraft between the islands. So, but yeah, we cannot start operating with an Airbus, Neo, etc. in between the islands, because that wouldn't work, of course. Especially not the Bovenwindse eilanden, where you have Ceiba and Statia also with much smaller airport operations. So there's a lot of things that determine these airfares, and it's not just simply changing our fees that will lower the price. It's a start. And it's something that we wanted to use to actually roll out this discussion about what is happening with these airfares, because they are expensive indeed. They've lowered a little bit, but not enough to make it even more attractive. But then again, when we look at the numbers, the travel between the islands hasn't decreased, it's only increased. So the elasticity, that is also something that will be shown in the presentation on Monday. The elasticity is not an issue there as yet. But yeah, there's a lot of other details that on Monday, it will make it more clearer probably. Okay. So I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Maybe I can add as well, one of the objectives as well of the DCCA was also sustainable travel. So basically it's also looking at the business model of the airlines, depending what type of aircraft, the dependency on fuel, depends when the fuel, is higher. And one of the precedents also was to see if sustainable aircraft can be used. So that's why we brought the Pipistrel, which is the electric flying aircraft, to show that it is possible. However, we're not there yet. A lot of certifications need to take place for sustainable travel aircraft. So that still needs to take place. On margins, I don't think a margin has been set. A number was prognosticated in the beginning. Personally, I don't think that was feasible. So that needs to be seen again and revisited. Thank you.
Dankjewel, meneer Lyndon Lewis, voor de vraag. En dan kunnen we dit onderdeel afsluiten. Ik zie geen vragen meer. Ik heb nog wel een opmerking. Dus in de presentatie, of daarnet, werd er gerefereerd naar maandag. Maandag op het programma staat wel in het verband van tripartiet overleg. Dus daar wordt dan als agendapunt inter-island connectivity dan verder besproken. Dus dat geldt dan met name dan niet voor de delegatie van Nederland. Ik zie meneer De Koer met een opmerking.
Dank. Wacht even. Ja, de microfoon doet het.
Ja.
Dank voor uw presentatie. Daar kwam uit dat Aruba wetgeving moet aanpassen om hier de privacy te beschermen, de data te beschermen. En mijn vraag aan de hele IPCO is dat eigenlijk iets wat ons allemaal betreft? En zou dit een onderwerp voor het IPCO kunnen zijn? Op welke wijze we kunnen bespoedigen dat die databescherming op orde is, zodat we economisch stappen kunnen zetten?
Ja, dat kunnen we zo even bij de presidium ook naar voren brengen. Om te kijken in welk verband dat we dat mee kunnen nemen. Ja, dank u wel, meneer De Koor. Ik heb nog een mededeling voordat we dit onderdeel echt afsluiten. Dus wij vragen vanuit de AAA en ook vanuit de IPCO dat de jassen en colbert achtergelaten worden voor de mannen en heren die dat hebben en de dames de tassen dan ook achter kunnen laten. Ja, en dan voordat we echt afsluiten, dan willen we toch de AAA en de executives heel hartelijk bedanken voor jullie presentatie voor onze IPCO-delegaties van morgen. En dan hebben we dan ook een presentje voor jullie.
Laatste aanvraag, last request. When you exit, please go to the right. There is a team there that's going to hand you out a vest of the airport before we go to the buses. Okay?